Hey everyone, welcome to Wildlife Inspired. I'm your host, Scott Keys. Got a great one for you today. We're going to talk about duck photography, and I'm going to give you 5 accessories, real accessories, that I promise you if you use them, they will help you out in the field, and we'll get to it right after this. Now in today's video, we're going to talk about duck photography, specifically some accessories that I guarantee you, something on this table is going to help you out in the field if you give it a chance. So I'm going to walk you through kind of my setups, and this is all based off of practical experience. There are some things I used 5 years ago that I no longer use, and there's some things I'm using over the last couple years that I will just absolutely swear by. I'm going to break it down piece by piece. I hope to give you 5 really practical accessories that will help you improve your waterfowl or your duck photography. I also want to make a note here, and I may mention it again, I have a Patreon channel that's subscription based. All the content here on YouTube is free. So everything I'm going to show you here content-wise, there's no charge for. There are some affiliate links down below. If you're interested in anything you see on the table here, check those links out. But on the subscription side, I get into a lot more detail. So I'll have videos behind the scenes. I'll show you how I set this up. For duck photography, I've done videos where I show you maps, how I scout places, how I go down, how I approach. So there's a lot more information on that. The video today on YouTube, this one's going to get you some accessories that I really find important. And I'm going to start with what to wear out in the field. Now, years ago, I kind of relied on just camouflage. I've got some camo over here. It's just something I would drape over myself. This is a camouflage cape, not waterproof, by the way. So I want to put that out there. If you're down by the water's edge, be very sensitive to that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I would rely on this camouflage. I had some success. Certain species are more tolerant, certain individuals are more tolerant, but I'm talking about wild waterfowl, wild ducks in this video. And for the most part, movement or perception of you along the shoreline, you're done. So I've used this camouflage in the past. I keep this cape in my car. I normally have a piece of camouflage sitting in a bag in my car. If there's something that's unplanned that I needed that for, it's there. And in years past, I use this. Had some limited success with this, but what I often found is just the slightest movement, even while under cover, the slightest movement of my body, ducks would perceive my presence, and even if they didn't fly away or flush off, they often turn their bodies away from me. And what I really like about waterfowl photography is getting an intimate look, an engaging look, often where they're coming right at you. So we're going to talk about how to achieve that with some of the gear that we're using here. So in the past, camouflage, this is a camouflage cape. I use this actually more for songbirds when I'm trying to hide in certain areas. Don't use it a lot, but I do find it come in handy. Now, what I do want to talk about is when I'm dressing and preparing for waterfowl, what do I use today? And I'm going to show you the setups that I use, but I also want to talk about the equipment that I use. And the first thing is just waterproofing. Now, I'm not really worried about camouflage here because I'm going to hide other ways. This is made by a company, and this is actually a fishing company. It's Grundens, and I have found that sometimes as wildlife photographers, we have to get a little resourceful and think of other people, other hobbyists or other professions that make gear that might be applicable to us. I need something that's 100% waterproof. Up on the side, this is important. There's going to be some information. Waterproof, water resistant is highly subjective. I have purchased things that said waterproof and I put them on, and you sprinkle some water on them, they look great. You lay down in mud or kind of a swampy area, they are 100% not waterproof. I put this video out in February. March is the key time for ducks around here. So it's still cold. If I've got something that's not waterproof on and I get wet in that cold environment, it is just miserable. So I'm going to recommend a couple things. Take a look. Anytime something is recommended or sold as waterproof or water resistant, see if they rate it. So there are ratings. I'll put the ratings up here. These are actual ratings for the material. How water resistant is it? And it starts at like 5,000, goes down, I think it goes up to 30,000. What I look for is 10 to 20,000. So that's the measurement that I'm using for some of this. Now, in many cases, it's not as breathable. So this is almost like wearing a rubberized suit or plastic. These are fishing bibs. This gives me a little protection all the way up onto my chest. I'm not gonna put them on for you. I'll put a link down there below. I'll put a picture up on the side so you can see what they look like. But these bibs will come up much higher. And again, I'm just trying to be resourceful and look at other professions or hobbies that might have gear that I can use while I'm out there shooting it. So I'm looking at something waterproof, really waterproof, looking at the ratings, and on top of that bib, or sometimes I'll put some pants on. I've got another set of pants that are water resistant. I got to have a jacket that's water resistant, and I'm sorry, waterproof. Again, water resistant isn't what I'm looking for. I'm looking for real waterproof, and I'm looking at those ratings. Now, I've got 2 jackets that I wear. One was actually, they call it like a semi-dry suit or a kayaking skirt, but I've put those over top with some success. I've got another rubberized jacket. Sometimes you don't have to spend a lot of money, especially when it's just vinyl or rubber, but you do want to look into a decent quality jacket or some kind of pull or throw over. When buying those, I also buy them a size up, because in the winter I'm going to have layers underneath, and I've got to have a jacket with some room, and I've got to have pants or a bib with some room in it. So number one is just a basic introduction to what I wear down there. I want you to keep in mind why it's so important that it's waterproof. The best areas of a lake, so if you've got a body of water and I need to get low and comfortable, it has to be flat. The flattest areas next to a lake are also normally the soggiest and muddiest, because as water rises and goes down, those areas will often be the moistest. The steep cliffs, they'll be dry up top, but they're terrible to do photography from. So what I'm looking for is really flat areas next to the lake. Again, often very, very muddy or wet. And to that point, I'm going to talk about this next piece. And this is just a yoga mat. There are many different styles. I've had people recommend tarps. You need something quiet. So if you've ever handled a tarp, a traditional tarp, even though it's very waterproof, they crinkle and they make a lot of noise. I have purchased the thinnest yoga mat, and I'm afraid to hold it up because you can see the dirt and mud out of practical use. Had this for about 3 or 4 years. This is 1 millimeter thick. So it's very, very light, and I can throw it into a duffel bag as I'm hiking into to photograph ducks. So any type of yoga mat will work. I recommend one that's I'm 6 feet tall. I try to get one that's at least 6 feet tall, and about 3 feet wide is a sweet spot. This one's a little narrower than that. And also note that if you're in a soggy area and your body weight goes down, often the water will come into the yoga mat, and being waterproof, it sits there. So you want to be careful. A wider mat or a wider tarp could be advisable here. But the one that I like, and the one I'm going to put down in the links, is the one I personally use. And this is a very ultra thin. I don't know if you could see. Gosh, I'm embarrassed how dirty this is. I don't know if you could see how thin that is, but it is really, really thin. And it is water resistant or waterproof. It does not let water in from the underneath. So I really, really like this mat. So again, being comfortable, trying to protect myself from some of the elements out there, that's my mat. Now let's talk about the setup. Like, what do I use to put my camera on? Well, I've got 2 pieces of equipment that I use regularly. This is, I've had this on the channel like 3 times. This is the best item you can buy for under $20. I think I've seen this on Amazon for $10. Right around 10 or 15 bucks. It is an absolute no-brainer. It's called a heat seat. It's waterproof underneath. I can put my camera on here like a beanbag. I've shot video on this. I've shot numerous waterfowl images on this. And it rests the camera very low to the ground, and it's multi-purpose. I can sit on it. I can hike with it. This one pretty much stays in my car all the time. If I needed to shoot on my car, I could set this on the top of my car and put this on there. So just a lot of uses for this. I really, really love this. I'm going to call it a heat seat, but I'll put a description down there. There you go. I'll put a description down there with a link. So if you're interested in that one, hit the link down below, and that'll take you right to it. But love this one. Now, the other setup that I use is a mini tripod. And I want to show this to you because a lot of people are setting up on the water on full tripods. The advantage of this is just the size. I can hike with this. I can actually put this, I have a duck bag. I can put this in my duck bag. It's fairly low. It spreads out nice. It holds all of the lenses I've put on there. Now, I'm not going to lie. It's not something you're going to want to shoot unless it's really low to the ground and stable. I would never put my larger lenses on this and lift it up and shoot. But this mini tripod offers me a very portable solution. I put an inexpensive gimbal on here because I typically with ducks, I'm shooting on one plane. I'm not worried about, tilting and panning too much. So I just need something that's functional. I'm not going to link this gimbal head down there, but this is one that I think I got a few years ago. And since I've upgraded my other gimbals, I just dedicate it to this setup. I really, really like this mini tripod. By the way, The mini tripod, you could throw a cell phone on it and take selfies sometimes if you're making video. You could put a camera or an iPhone on there with an iPhone holder. It's got multiple purposes. Sometimes I even use it in here when I'm shooting with a second camera. I'll throw my smaller lens on there and do some photography in the studio here. So this mini tripod, this one, by the way, made by Sirui. It is the AM223. It is not expensive. I've seen mini tripods that cost as much as $300 or $400. I have seen this on Amazon for under $100. And again, it's well made. I've had this one for years and I've never had a problem with it. So highly recommend the pad. Highly recommend this. Don't love my big tripods out there for waterfowl photography. This is a really good option if you're doing waterfowl photography to keep the weight down, keep the size down, highly portable and multifunctional. So the mini tripod, that is absolutely on my list. Now, I'm dressed. I got my bag ready. I've got my holders in there, ready to go out in the field. How am I hiding? Remember I told you I'm not using camo as much. Well, I'm gonna show you a blind. I've got 2 blinds here, and again, over on my Patreon channel, I actually show you about 5 blinds. These aren't necessarily the ones I use all the time, but I'm gonna put them in the video because they're the easiest to use and they're very inexpensive. So the first one is a do-it-yourself. Now I've got 2 here. The do-it-yourself version, hopefully it didn't get tangled, is simply some stakes. These are lawn stakes. And it's Velcroed, or in this case, zip tied onto some camo. And that's it. This little setup I can throw into a bag or carry down to the lakeside. It looks like this. And if you've got camo laying around and you got some yard stakes, you don't even have to pay for it. So this is my first do-it-yourself version. Then I noticed a company was selling it and I decided to upgrade, I'll call it upgrade, into this. And this one is just a little different. On this one, instead of zip tying, it's actually got sleeves that the poles go in. I like that. It's got 4 stakes. So if you're making this for yourself, 4 stakes is good because it allows you to create kind of like a U shape around your body. You can design these yourself so you can make sections longer if you're doing the do-it-yourself version, or you can buy this one down in the links below. I want to say this one was around 20 bucks, so it's not expensive at all. I really, really like this. So in my bag, this is the blind. I'll call this a stake blind that I use. The advantage is I can hold it like this. I've been in situations where I've done the dive, the duck will dive and I'll dash, so I call it the dive and dash. They'll duck. I'll get an estimate of how long they're under. I can often get down to the shoreline and stake that in. If I'm close, I can make that little sprint and stake it in by the time they come back up. So in less than a minute, I can have this set up and I can get the basic setup of my camera. The nice thing about these is once I get the blind up and I'm below it, I can still move my camera around a little bit. It offers very, very good protection. And the huge advantage to using one of these stake blinds over just a blanket over your head is movement. You can move behind there and they won't see you. Now, in this one, I did have to cut a little slit in the front to have an opening for my camera, but I will tell you, these little stake blinds are just inexpensive, easy to use, and if you're just starting to do duck photography or experimenting with some ways to get a little bit more concealment, take a look at this very inexpensive option. I think you'll really, really like that. And that's my video for you today. Duck photography or waterfowl photography accessories that are practical. One thing about this, if you've watched my channel before, no matter what I do, I try to be extremely practical about the gear that I use and the advice that I give. Everything here, I promise you, if I was going out for photography this afternoon, this is the gear that would end up in the trunk of my car ready to go. It absolutely works. There's something in this video, I think that everybody watching, there's something in this video that you could find very, very helpful. To give you an idea of some of the success I've had for that, I'll flash a few images over here just from the last 2 years that I've taken of some of the pretty waterfowl locally in the area. And as this video winds down, I want to remind you, if you're not subscribed to the channel, I've got a lot more practical advice out there for you. Hit the subscribe button, the little bell for notifications to let you know when I have a new video out. I'm going to take you out to a little video that I took last year of some ducks that I really, really enjoyed. It's beautiful. Wildlife is just so beautiful. So let's continue to find inspiration in wildlife together.